Hello and welcome to another edition of Sree's Sunday New York Times Read Along. Our guest this week is Andrea Zagata, the New York Times Senior Staff Editor for News Design. You can find her on Instagram at Zagata M, Zagata M. My name is Neil Parekh. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Neil Parekh. I'm the executive producer and guest host of the show. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and our Digimentors website. Please like, comment, share, do all the things that you do on social media. Make sure to mention folks that you think might be interested in this particular show. But we also want to know where you're watching from. So put in a note in the comments, particularly if you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. We'll be able to see it on screen. For folks who are watching the replay, thank you very much for joining us. You're seeing this message at the top of the show. And we appreciate you taking the time to come back to this. If 8:30 a.m. Eastern time is not your jam, we do have folks who watch at 5:30 a.m. Pacific time. But whenever you watch and wherever you're watching from, we're always thrilled to have you. I am particularly excited about this week's show. I'm excited about almost every show that we have. But this one is going to be really great. Andrea is on the design desk. She is going to be walking us through, in particular, a special section called India's Daughters, which has come out, as it came out as an email and was online, but they put it all together this week into a tabloid section. So we're going to walk through that with her. Um, and before we do that, and before we bring her on, we're going to take a look at see who's watching, who's joining us this morning. Um, and That is we are watching. My mom is watching from Hastings on Hudson, New York. No, I made a mistake. Tampa. I was doing it to guess. Um, she's in Tampa, Florida for the winter. Thank you, Mom, for watching. As always, I do my little wave. Hi, Mom. Um, she is always a great loyal viewer. So thank you. Um, and let's see who else is watching. Let's see here. We have Doug Levy watching from the San Francisco area, one of our 5:30 a.m. Eastern time viewers. Thank you, Doug. Always, sorry, 5:30 Pacific time viewers. Jody Gould is watching on LinkedIn. Thank you, Jody. And I'll check when Andrea comes on. I don't recognize Jody's name, so in case Jody is a friend of Andrea's, we'll definitely give you a shout out. Pramod is watching on LinkedIn as well. Thank you, Pramod. Jonathan is watching from the East Village, where I've celebrated my birthday by becoming an LLC to launch a web thing or two. Jonathan, intriguing. We definitely want to hear more about that. And happy birthday as well. Naomi Service is joining us from Columbus, Ohio, traveling today. So thank you for joining. No, Naomi, I'm glad you weren't confused that we weren't doing the show at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. For folks who might remember, last week we had an epic show. Our guest was Adam Nagorny, and we did it at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, 8:30 Pacific, because he's based in LA. So that's the little banter back and forth with Naomi. Um, we may have gone overboard last week, making sure people knew that we had the later start time, but it worked. We had a great turnout, one of our best shows ever. Our friend Stefan Kaplan is joining. Thank you, Stefan, saying good morning to the New York Times Read Along family. Always wonderful to be here. Stefan is, unless he's somewhere different, because, Naomi threw me for a loop being in Columbus. Stefan usually joins us from Ramsey, New Jersey, from home. Stefan, are you cooking breakfast for little man today and the family, or just watching? Because I know sometimes you multitask Sunday mornings. Kevin is joining us from peaceful Pleasant Valley, Connecticut. Kevin is watching from Facebook. Kevin, thank you so much. Another name I don't recognize. Maybe a longtime viewer, first time commenter. So thank you for being here. We'll be actually up in Connecticut ourselves over the holidays. My wife's family is from Connecticut, and my wife and I both went to Wesleyan University, so we'll be spending Christmas week with her sister and our in-laws. Um, Carl is watching, a longtime Sri fan. Hello from Austin, Texas. Carl, thank you so much. Of course, I'm sitting in for Sri today. Sri is out of town, but I am always honored to have the opportunity to guest host the show. Diane Stefani is watching from Margate, New Jersey. There's an E at the end of that. I know that because she's usually at home in Margate, but Diane, thank you very much. And Marta is watching. Oh, sorry, not Marta. Mitria, my apologies. Good morning to all. This is Mitria from my home in Brooklyn, New York. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Remember to like, comment, share. If you're watching on Facebook, one of the things you should do is press play on the video and not just watch it as it's coming in your stream. That way, if you're putting a comment, we'll actually see it. So definitely make a point of doing that. So one of the things that we want to do is uh, we're going to go through the front page sections of the paper. We're going to talk about India's daughters, this special section. We'll also cover um, uh, the special best of 2023 uh, uh, pieces from New York Times Books and New York Times Arts. So we're looking forward to that. A few quick announcements before we jump in. We want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Muck Rack. Thank you for being a longtime sponsor of the New York Times Read Along and to be supportive of all of Sri's work over the years. The New York Times Read Along is produced by Digimentors. It's the consulting firm that Sri started with his friend Andrew Lee. I'm the vice president of events and communications. We do digital marketing, events and digital programs, strategic communications, trainings, and workshops. We also help with staffing and recruiting. We also, in addition to that, we've started doing a lot of workshops around AI. So if you're interested in that, please let us know. Here's a card for Sri's AI workshop. He's been doing workshops like this for many, many years. He was teaching people how to use the web in 1998. You see, he had hair back then. So Sri's been at this for a while. And if you're interested, get in touch. We'd love to work with you. Another announcement, just in terms of a programming note, next week we're going to have two guests on: Walter Grayson, who's been on the show several times before, and Tim Fielder. They collaborated on a graphic novel, The Graphic History of Hip Hop. So we're looking forward to seeing that. And then after that, we're going to be taking 2 weeks off for the holidays, December 24th and 31st. We'll return January 7th. The final note before we start looking at the paper, and I want to give you a heads up that this is a sensitive topic. So just want you to be aware, for folks who have been watching the show and who are regulars, you're familiar with some of the sensitive content we've shared and talked about. But for others, I don't want to shock you too much. But I have been helping to produce a show and co-hosting a show with Candace Sanchez, Unspoken Conversations with Candace. It's season 3 has been dedicated to male survivors of sexual abuse. This is the season finale. We're going to review some of what we've learned over the course of the year and talk about next steps in our advocacy work. Steve will share a link to that show in Facebook. And I should have mentioned earlier, Steve Taylor is with us today, helping to curate content and share links. But I want to make sure you knew about this show in particular. I'm very proud of the work that we've done with this. I myself am a survivor, and I've learned so much over the course of this year. So if you have a chance to join us, 7 p.m. on Monday, that would be great. Really appreciate that. Okay, so with that, we will switch our attention to the newspaper, and we'll bring on Andrea to walk through the first page of the various sections and go right into the India's Daughters special section. Andrea, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Hello. Happy to be here. Also, since you got to wave to your mom, I have to wave to
Is your
my nieces and nephews who are watching, I've been told,
Oh,
on
good.
YouTube.
Did they didn't comment yet, did they?
They did not comment, but I did get a text message of a giant face on a TV broadcasting to my brother's living room.
Nice.
So hi, Mom, and hi to everybody else.
Absolutely. If we do see a comment from them, let me know and I'll make sure to flag it and flag it for them. This is Sunday morning. You don't usually work Sunday mornings.
That's
You're on a
correct.
Tuesday Saturday schedule, right? So thank you so much for uh, waking up and talking about work on your day off. You what do you usually do Sunday mornings if you're not
Oh
running the
man.
show?
Well, at this time on a Sunday morning, I would usually be sleeping. But I'm also a big soccer fan, so Sunday is my day to watch soccer. Of course, I work on Saturday, so I miss usually the Saturday games or they're on in the other room. So if there's a Sunday game, I get to watch, which is great. Manchester City is my team, so usually I am sleeping or watching soccer or sometimes walking the dog, who's
Got
very
it.
demanding.
That- That's great. And tell us a little bit. I know I mentioned we'd bring up the paper, but now that we have you, tell us a little bit about what you do at the Times more broadly. We'll get into the India's Daughters and the other sections, but just give our audience a little introduction.
Yeah, so I've been at the New York Times for 7 years. I'm a news designer, and that means that I work on news projects. For the last 2 years, I have designed the Sunday newspaper, mostly the national section. So I do a lot of the big enterprise that runs in Sunday. I plan the national section, and to get even nerdier with it, that means that I figure out where all the stories are going, what fits, what needs color, where the photos go, and I work with photo editors to just kind of make the paper the thing that you pick up today.
That's great. We always love to hear a little bit about the background of what's going on with the paper and kind of who does what. I will say that Andrea is a friend of the show. We work very closely with our colleagues Tom and Tom Jolly, Wayne Camadoy, and Andrea often chimes in when we have special sections. And we'll review some of her work, her greatest hits, if you will, later in the show. If folks remember seeing a special section on Haiti, Andrea was behind that as well. But with that, a little bit of a background, let's go ahead and take a look at what's in the paper. We'll go ahead and put the paper front and center, and then I will step away, and we can walk through what we're going to see today in our show. So the front page, we have the lead Israel long let Kashem Qatar prop up Hamas rather. So that's an interesting. We have the display story dimming a once electric city in Hong Kong. A government crackdown on neon signs has come to symbolize a loss of much more than flashy lights. And we have this big story here. The guns were said to be destroyed. They were just reborn. Um, Below the fold, there's a promo for the India's Daughters special section, which we'll take a look at. And then just below the fold, unfortunately, I thought this would have been above the fold myself, but right at the fold, Penn's president felled by Fuhrer over testimony. We'll take a look at that article. If you saw 3 university presidents testified before Congress earlier this week, and the University of Pennsylvania president actually offered her resignation, and I don't think this made it in the print section that came to DC. It was printed by the Washington Post, but the chair of the board of trustees also announced their resignation. So turbulent times there. Below, still on the front page, but below the fold, star of Ruthian proportions joins the Dodgers for $700 million. That's Shohei Ohtani. We don't focus on sports so much on the show because it's an international audience, but this is an international story, and this is beyond just baseball. Shohei Ohtani, 700 million, 70 million a year for 10 years, which is incredible. The other story is tiny vehicles lead big shift away from oil. We'll get to that, of course, a little later. This is the India's Daughters special section. You see they printed it as a tabloid. We'll ask Andrea about that. We'll take a look at the online version and talk about how they transfer that to print, how they approach that. But the subhead, for two young women chasing opportunity, has become a fight for their lives, an experience that is emblematic of a rapidly changing society. Andrea, I know you're excited about the book review, right?
I'm very excited. This is my favorite section. I'm a big reader, so
Yeah.
I told you earlier when we chatted, because my sections come on Saturday. I'm a 7-day subscriber, but my paper was stolen yesterday, so I went out and bought one so that I could have this book review section.
That's so unfortunate. As we're taking a look at the book review, though, I do want to bring in a comment because I think we have family in the house. Alexandra Zagata. We love you, Andrea. In addition to being so talented, she's an incredible auntie and friend. Hello from Michigan. Is that the
Yeah, so that's my sister-in-law, Alex. She is a digital director at a TV station in Detroit, and she and my brother have 2 kids, Lucy and Lucas, who I just visited last week. And then I think my other brother is watching on YouTube. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
That's great. A few other folks have joined us since we did our introduction, so we'll take a pause here to do that. Let's see. Who do we have? We have Paula Kiger watching from Daytona Beach, Florida. She's traveling as well. Paula is a longtime producer of the show and still a good friend. Paula, thank you so much for watching this morning. And Tim Fielder is watching. Tim is going to be on the show next week. He's enjoying the show, and he'll be posting portraits in between coffee cups. He does live drawing. So we're looking forward to next week. We're going to figure out how to connect. He'll talk about the graphic history of hip hop, but we'll also show some of his live drawing next week. So that'll be worth tuning in for. So let's go back to the rest of the paper and see what else is there. Carl just put in a quick comment, so I will grab that before we go. In an early edition here I have in Texas, we don't have the sports story or the Penn President article. Will Andrea talk about how page 1 is remade for late breaking news? So that's something to think about for later. And again, another family comment, can't pass those up. Simon, Mom, Dad, Finn, and I are all watching, of course.
Hi, Simon. Simon's my brother. My parents are visiting, and Finn is my 1-year-old nephew. He just turned 1. So.
That's great. Hopefully Finn is recognizing you on the screen and waving and getting all.
Yeah, in my head, that's what's happening. So we'll take it.
we'll just assume that that's what's going on. Simon and Alexandra, thank you so much for supporting Andrea and watching the show. Please feel free to share the post, share the Facebook post with family so they can watch as well. You can share it right on Facebook or tag people in the comments and they'll get a notification. So with that, we will go back to the paper and we'll just keep going with our little tour. And then we'll jump into India's Daughters. So the best books of 2023 we'll get to. Another best of, we'll try and make time for. Arts and Leisure has a best of 2023 section as well. And I thought it was interesting that they used newsprint, this design. They used news pages and then did kind of little cutouts with a stereo and a musical note, a piano. Um, Hopefully, this is coming through for you on
Yeah,
your
that
screen,
illustration is gorgeous. This
isn't
is the
it?
first time I've seen it because, as I said, my paper was stolen. But I love that illustration. I think it's just like really, it's just lively and inviting. And I think I don't know how it looks online, but I think if you pick this up in print, you're like, if you're getting print, you're already kind of a nerd. So like, you probably appreciate a little bit of a nerdy illustration in your newspaper.
And that's why we celebrate print journalism, right? You see a different look. I'll be curious to see what it looks like online. Um, we have the Sunday opinion section. The future is being bulldozed, facing armed settlers and crowded into ever smaller spaces. Palestinians are struggling to cling to their rightful land. Clearly, an opinion piece. It's always important to note, the difference between news and opinion. Um, and this is obviously a very important topic, but we'd never see anything like this in the news pages. Um,
Yeah, I think that's a really hard thing for readers, right? It's a hard thing to explain, but it is really important. And we try, I think, to make it look as distinct as possible to make it easier for people to make that
mhm.
difference.
Absolutely, and we'll see that with the layout inside when we look at the opinion. They do have a reference, an article by Michelle Goldberg, a reefer, I believe these are called at the bottom,
Yep.
right? A
Yep.
furor over a hearing about anti-Semitism on college campuses may ultimately suppress free speech. So that'll be interesting to read. Another, do it for your kids. Resist the temptation to check their online grades constantly, and hope. Liz Cheney is the rare Republican who understands that Trump won't just fade away. Uh, if she doesn't actually run, maybe I don't know. It's getting a little scary out there. Um, the Sunday Styles, the main story, the people and things that made us talk this year about what we wear, how we live, and how we express ourselves. Another 2023 review,
Yeah,
and the awards,
lots of year-end roundups in this paper.
right? And the awards go to, and the little award is the most styles ish. The Golden Ish, a virtual award recognizing all those stylish and styles ish, is going to the people and things that left a lasting impression. I don't remember this award from last year. I wonder if it's a new thing, a new gimmick.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that is new. Don't quote me on that. But I haven't seen. I don't remember seeing that either.
yeah. At the top here, and again, I'm just double checking when they're at the top. Are they also reefers, or is there a different term?
You can call them either. I would call them skyboxes.
Skyboxes. There we go. Always learning about the times. This is the kind of thing I always tell people that we're New York Times geeks. We love to get the inside jargon and the language that's used. Skyboxes. I don't think I'd heard that term before in all the years we've been doing this, unless I had missed it. But in these skyboxes, the one I want to call out is this image of the Jeffersons, Norman Lear's on-screen women. So there've been several tributes and reviews of Norman Lear's work. 101 years old, if I'm not mistaken, and what an incredible legacy he left.
Yeah, I bet that the person who commented from Texas has a Norman Lear story on his front page instead of that sports story. That's just a guess.
Oh, interesting, interesting. So we'll have to ask. That was Carl Levin. Carl, let us know what you see on your front page. One of the things to note is that the New York Times is printed around the country by 27 different presses. It may have been consolidated a little bit. I know that Buffalo actually outsourced their printing to Cleveland. So maybe it's down to 26, assuming Cleveland was already on the list. But we've learned a lot. My Sri did a read along at the New York Times printing plant with Mike Connors. I had a chance to visit with Mike earlier this year, and we're still working on getting him back on the show. So look forward to that coming up. And I know there's a Times Insider piece about all the printing work. that the New York Times does. So we'll take a look at that when we look at the front page, the A-book. The last few sections here for our tour: Sunday Business, Innovate or Get Out of the Way, the eccentric movement known as effective accelerationism. I hadn't heard about that before. Wants to unshackle powerful AI and party while doing it. So that's an interesting look at the business section. There's the graphic, and it extends about 2/3 of the way down. Article on the bottom: a character-driven approach to diversifying fiction, shaking up the book world by pitching stories that feature minorities and promoting authors. And then reefers at the bottom: work friend, freelance does not equal full-time. Contracted employers should not be able to control your schedule. Very interesting point there. And then the last piece, of course, is the New York Times Magazine. This is the text around it's Michael Stipe. How do you reinvent yourself after being a global superstar? Michael Stipe is still figuring that out. So that'll be interesting to take a look at as well. So that's this week's paper. And we're going to leave the India's Daughters on the front page, on the front of that pile here. We'll get back to that in just a second. Andrea, we have so many people joining us today that want to wish you well. Let's take a look at who else has chimed in since we started. And if you haven't yet, let us know where you're watching from. Put a link in the comments. Sorry, put a chat in the comments. If you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, we can put it on the screen like we will in just a moment. So Wayne Camadoy, big Michigander representation. So you, Andrea, you're from Michigan, I take it?
I'm from Michigan. So my family who commented earlier, they're all watching from Michigan. And actually, there are quite a few people in our department who are from Michigan. So I went to Michigan State, go green, and Wayne went to Central Michigan, as did my mom. So fire up chips for them.
I was going to ask what kind of Michigan representation we had, whether it was a go big blue or big green state versus University of Michigan, Ann Arbor.
Yeah, I would say, Neil, that sometimes people hear I'm from Michigan and they say, oh, I have lots of friends who went to U of M. And I usually say, well, I don't have any friends who went to U of M.
So I mentioned earlier, I went to Wesleyan University. We used to have a T-shirt that said, "Friends don't let friends go to Williams," which was
That's
one of
right.
our rivals. I assume that's a similar.
That's right. Yeah. Friends
expression.
don't let friends cheer for U of M.
Exactly. We have another family member watching, Mary Kay Zapata.
That's my mom. Hi,
That's your mom
Mom.
watching on YouTube. Hi, Andrea. We're looking forward to seeing this in print. Love you. Absolutely. And I should remind folks, we are going to be talking about India's Daughters, but if you don't get the paper, we have a PDF and a gift links to all the articles on our website. So check out our website, digimentors.group/NYTReadalong for India's Daughters. If you go there and you see Andrea's show, click through and you'll find the gift link and the PDF. And I'll just put a note in there for folks to find it. Doing this in real time.
Yeah, my mom actually usually she has to drive to the grocery store to get the paper because they live too far out for delivery.
Oh, really?
So yesterday she asked me when the puzzle section was coming out, and I said, "Not this week, but you can go pick up my section."
Yes, absolutely. And there's the note about getting the PDF and the gift link to India's Daughters. Puzzle Mania will be out next week, and we'll be taking a look on our show. We had a great show last year focusing on Puzzle Mania. We waited until January because we had one of the people who helped edit the puzzles join us, Greg Pliska. So that was.
I love Puzzle Mania. My husband and I usually put the big crossword out on our table for a couple weeks and then kind of chip away at it. It's really fun.
Good. Other people that are watching, Paula Reddy is watching on Facebook. Paula, thank you very much. And as you can see here, Steve is dutifully putting in links to articles that we're talking about and referencing, even the reefers. So, Steve, thank you very much for that work. For folks who are regular watchers of the show, Steve was also a longtime producer of the show and is pinching in this week for us. So, thank you, pitching in or pinch hitting, depending on which phrase you want to use. Marilyn is watching from Staten Island. Marilyn, thank you so much for your support and for sharing the show. Carl confirmed that it's Norman Lear on page 1 for the edition that he got.
How did I
And
know? How did I
well,
know, Neil?
well, I'm assuming you either knew or you were making educated guess based on the Bulldog edition.
I
And that's
knew,
what,
yeah, I knew because I knew that that sports story did not come into the 8
yeah.
p.m. edition.
Yeah, it came in late last night. Diana is watching from San Francisco, another one of our 5:30 local time viewers. Thank you, Diana. Wayne offered to fire up chips as well. Liz Pressman is a MUU grad here. MUU, Liz, is that Missouri? What's MUU? Do you know?
Is it Wisconsin?
We'll have to see. Liz, you'll have
Liz,
to help
tell
us
us
out
what
here.
MUU is. I'm dying to know.
And Paula is joining us from Hyderabad. So thank you, Paula. So with that, let's take a look at India's Daughters. Just an incredible section. We will take a look at the print section. We'll walk through. Andrea did the graphic design for this. But what I want to do is to actually start with the online version because that's really where how this story started, or how the coverage started as an online feature. So we'll just take a quick look at what it looks like online, and then go to the print edition, and so we can talk about the transition from one to the other. So let's take a look at that real quick. And again, as a reminder, the gift link is on our website. So this is what you can see. Even I'll keep the print up for just a moment. The first chapter is taken for the same picture for the top of the front of the tabloid section. So we'll take that off for just a moment and just give you a sense of what you see if you go online. Um, Nice big display image, chapter 1 to take control. You scroll down. Shout outs to Amanda Taub, Emily Schmall, Shalini Venugopal Bhagat, and Andrea Bruce had photographs in for this chapter. And we'll jump ahead real quickly because I want to give a shout out. I can't remember where she comes in. Soumya took pictures for.
I think I'm going to guess chapter 5, if I recall correctly.
You might be right, and I'm flipping through them to find. There we go. Soumya Khandelwal took pictures for chapter 5. So I wanted to just give a shout out to the full team behind that. So if you take a look at the way they laid it online, now this went out as an email to subscribers of the Interpreter, which I'll admit I wasn't actually familiar with the Interpreter before seeing this. I did see the articles in my app and on the website as they came out.
Yeah, I think this was kind of an interesting story form that I'm not sure I had seen before really either, where they were telling these stories kind of as a serial, right? So you were getting another kind of update as this newsletter came out. And I thought that was a really fun idea and a fun way to read it.
Definitely interesting. And serials were the way stories like this were shared in the past, right? So this is, Charles Dickens published his book as a serial, but you don't see it as often with newsprint. And you mentioned when we talked earlier, there's a reason you don't see this as often, right? In terms of serialized
So
articles.
we wouldn't do this as a serial in print because we have no way of knowing who is getting what pieces, right? We don't know that you're a 7-day subscriber, so it would be, kind of silly for us to put maybe one piece in Monday and one piece in Tuesday.
Sure.
So when we see something like this online, it makes a lot of sense, right? Everyone who subscribes to the interpreter is going to get it. They're going to get all the pieces. Maybe it's going to pick people up as it publishes. The photography is really beautiful. The story's engaging. I think it's lovely. But in print, we would more put it all together in a section or sometimes a broadsheet spread, whatever format, because we want you to be able to have all the pieces and to be able to sit with it and read it. So we don't take it for granted that you're going to know where to find all the pieces. We can't put links in like they did
Sure.
at the top here
Sure.
online for you to float around the chapters. So it's just kind of a different strategy for different mediums and a different readership.
And so we're looking at chapter 2, and I just wanted to scroll down just to show some of the photography. Usually with online versions, we often we'll look at, obviously we focus on print, but we'll often look at the online version of an article because you have so much more room, obviously, for photography and some more flexibility with layout. So here's where you usually would see all of the photographs for a story like this. But what's nice when we get to the print section, you'll see that you were able to use all of these photographs as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different way of thinking when you're editing it, right? Because obviously here you're seeing them as single stories, and in print you're seeing everything kind of together. So it's a little bit of a different edit for print for that reason. It's interesting to think about, okay, someone's going to see this all at once. They're not
Yeah.
scrolling through. They're not, taking a little bit to read and then seeing a photo.
Well, and I'll say in terms of the writing, and we try and focus on the writing as much as we can when possible. Um, is if you look at the transition from chapter 1 to chapter 2, it very much lends itself to a long form, almost as if and it's possible it was written as a long form piece and then broken up. If you go to the very end of the first chapter, and I'll explain a little bit what the story is, but just work on, she had a few hours. Is the story of Nasreen. Starts off with Nasreen, who was escaping a situation, where she was going to be forced into a marriage, etc. She actually, I'll give away a little bit of the first chapter. She hid a bag of clothes and valuables outside in the bushes and snuck out at night uh, and grabbed it and went. She had just a few hours before her family would wake up and find that she was missing. If she was not far away by the time they raised the alarm, her escape attempt would fail. She focused her mind and body on a single goal: just run. And when you go to chapter 2, if you're reading it this way, as Nasreen Parveen ran, her mind focused on nothing but putting one foot in front of the other. Run. Right. It's very much, a continuous storyline.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really beautiful story. For those who haven't read it yet, it is two different stories about women who are trying to further their education in India, and they find different paths to do that.
Yeah. Uh, and we'll take a look at, again, there's another great display photo, and then the other photos that are in this piece. This is focusing on Arti, who's applying for civil service exams, and one of the tests is to be able to run a 7-minute mile, and she trains hard for that. Seeing
I
that as
cannot run a 7-minute mile, so I
I'm
respect that.
I would not be anywhere close. But here's just um, the last few pictures. These are some of the medals that she'd won. But that is that again. I didn't want to focus so much on the online, but at least give that as the framework for it. Um, and so before we look at the print, we will get the answer to our question. Liz Pressman is a MooU grad. Uh, Andrea, you got some homework to do. Michigan State nickname back in the 70s.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh.
See, now Liz has taught me something today.
And Liz has a T-shirt to that effect, so
I love it.
that is
Liz,
great.
I would like to know, if you're still around, what your favorite flavor of Michigan State dairy store ice cream is.
What is your favorite flavor for Michigan State Dairy Store? Favorite flavor of ice cream, Liz?
Mine is the sesquicentennial swirl. It's
Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
That's a tongue twister.
Great. Well, let's take a look at the work that you did to transform that incredible piece into print. I'll go ahead and step over to the paper. And again, our guest is Andrea Zagata. She's a senior staff editor for news design at the New York Times. You can follow her on Instagram at Zagata M. Although that's mostly personal stuff, right? Not so much work stuff.
Yeah, it's
Um,
mostly concerts and pictures of the nieces and nephews that I just talked about. But sometimes it's work stuff.
Occasional, and it's not, you don't have it set up as a private account.
Yeah, it's a
Right?
public account. I use it a lot. I also art direct, so a lot of times I use it to follow illustrators that I have worked with or talked to, other people in the industry. So I use it for both, but the stuff that I post is kind of just
Mostly
my life.
Sure. So I want to bring in the answer from Liz. Vanilla is her favorite. I loved visiting the dairy and laying down in the farms behind campus and taking black and white photos of the cows. Liz,
I love it.
that's
Love
great.
that story.
And I looked up for just a moment because the rain has started here. So for folks up in New York and along the way, Andrea's in New York, Steve is in Philly. The rain should be coming fairly soon. Jonathan's reply: "Vanilla isn't boring; it's classic." I'm a vanilla fan myself, so I will endorse that. All right, let's take a look at the print edition because it's too good to pass up. We want to make sure we give it enough time. So this is a tabloid section, which is a nice read, right? It's set up the way the book review is set up.
Yeah, and I'm actually really glad that we went through online first, because that's also the first thing that I do. The first thing I do when I'm designing print is I say, okay, what do they do online? I spend time with it. I read it. I look at the photo edit. I look at the pacing, and that kind of helps me figure out what kind of story that they're telling before we think about the best way to translate it.
And that's when you have the opportunity, when it's an online feature and there's some time between the online and.
Yeah, I would say 90% of the time things are produced online before they're produced in print. So it's not so much that we do the same things, but the people who are producing for online are also creative people. So it's kind of nice to see in their brain how they worked through it.
Sure. And you can see, what struck me about the online version, sorry, the in print version, is the role of photography. You're using these full page images, putting the caption on the facing page, really makes it pop. I think more so than it does online. The banner photo definitely jumps out, but you get pictures like this that take up almost 3/4 of the spread. With
Yeah.
font, with the text being this big as well. That's not the whole story. The caption is here, but you have some text here that's huge.
Yeah, I think, the difference in print is that we have a little bit more of an opportunity sometimes to curate your experience, right? So Online, it's more self-guided. You can scroll through whatever pace works for you. You can click around. You can skip to chapters. But in print, I feel like I know how you're going to experience it, right? I
Yeah.
know that you're going page by page. So I really think a lot about the best way to pace it. How many big photos do we want to use? How do we want to? This is quite long, right? It's 6 chapters. So, how do we want to help guide you through it in a way that feels exciting and kind of digestible on every page? And also because these are photos, I hinted at this before, but these are a lot of photos of the same people that you're seeing all at once. So also, how do we make it not feel to you as a reader as if it is repetitive?
Sure. Sure. I want to give a quick shout out to Dr. Tachi, who's watching us from Fort Lauderdale on YouTube. Dr. Tachi, thank you very much. And we do need to follow up. We want to get you back on the show. But we're currently booking into March. I'll send you a link so we can schedule something later on. Um, we're looking at now. Explain a little bit about how the process works when when the news side, to separate it from the design side, right, for a moment, are working on a project and they're doing the reporting. Um, how did you get the privilege of doing this project?
Yeah, so I knew that this was coming out. I knew it was going to be a newsletter. And as we talked about before, I think we thought, okay, this has beautiful photography. It's a really nice story, and it makes the most sense to read it all together. I had not had a big project this year yet. So I heard about this and I thought it sounded really cool. So I asked my boss, I said, hey, is anyone designing that yet? Because if not, I'd love to see if my schedule works out, if I could take a crack at it. And he said, sure. So it happens all sorts of different ways. Sometimes it's you put your hand up for something, sometimes it is who has time in their schedule, or who's not on vacation when you're going to close the thing. So it's a lot of just bouncing around of who on the team has time to take something like this on. So that's kind of the first step. And then the second step is kind of deciding the format. I think I knew when I read this that I wanted to at least try being a tabloid. I think because of the nature of the photography being quite a few photos of the same people, on a broadsheet, you obviously would use more than one photo a page, right? So here, because it's a smaller format, you can see the photos more individually. And I think they make a lot more sense that way for this kind of story, which is both a timeline and a narrative about two different people. I've done one other tabloid like this that was a narrative about a wheelchair athlete who died actually of euthanasia, but that was a similar content in that it was telling a chronological kind of story, and many of the photos of course were of her. So for me, this format works really well for a story like this, because if you have broadsheet, you're maybe seeing 5 photos of the same person at once, and it can get a little confusing to figure out what to focus on.
Broadsheet being the vertical,
Yeah,
longer.
the big ones.
Yeah, yeah. So as we've been flipping through the section, looking at the photography, looking at the layout. Um, when you first started working on this, I mean, you ended up with this kind of template and with the text, with the big photos. Is this something that just kind of like it comes naturally to you? You see it and you go, this is how it needs to be done, and it's half hour later you're finished, not exactly half hour later, but I'm saying, like, you kind of just put pieces in place and it all falls together? Or do you really struggle with kind of how to make this work, what the sizing? Do you go through different iterations? What's
Yeah,
your
I
personal process?
usually I usually start with whatever the last section I did as like a
Don't we all?
starting point, right? Because I kind of am getting a sense of the grid, the pacing, what sorts of photo sizes work for this project. But then it goes through a lot of different iterations. How wide should the columns be? Should the text be bigger? Should it be smaller? Should it be a little spaced out? What system can I use for the captions? And it's this balance between having a system where things are generally being found in the same places, but also not painting yourself into a corner where I have to do every opening page the same every time because that's what I decided, right? You don't want to do that. And I think that's a really hard thing to say. I want it to look the same. I want it to look like it belongs together. But I also don't want to be wed to having to do the same thing on every page that's like this. And then, of course, at the end, there are tweaks to typography. There are, do I want these captions a little bolder or not? I think this caption spec is actually our features section captions, which are a little smaller and bold. The tracks on top of the page, the little chapter labels, those are spaced out a little to match some of the typography on the cover. And then interestingly enough, I didn't learn this. I learned this doing this section. When you track out the words, it puts spacing between the letters, but it doesn't put any extra spacing between the words. So you have to do that one at a time to kind of separate like chapter from the number one, and then that semicolon from, the name. So that's like little nitty gritty stuff that we are cleaning up all the way till the day that we send this.
Wow. I will point out, I noticed this page seemed different than the others, having three pictures. This one centered picture crossing the spread, and only one column of text on the left, as opposed to three columns in most of the
Yeah,
pages.
so there are a lot of different, I think, little playful moments in there. And again, a lot of that was trying to give myself kind of the flexibility to do what fits that content, that photo, that amount of type the best. A lot of the photo edit follows the web edit for the stories, but not all of it. So I was also sending versions to the photo editor who's in Seoul. So I would send it at night, and then I would maybe get a reply in the morning. And he was talking to another photo editor in New York and also London to get feedback. So it definitely went through a lot of different versions and a lot of little tweaks, moves here and there. You're thinking about, where can I put this photo if I want it to cross across the spread where I'm not going to have someone's face right in the middle? And how do I play with my grid properly to make that happen?
Sure. So we'll close out the last page, and this is, we'll mention a little bit about the story, but this is the last page of the story. The additional credits, we looked at the credits at the beginning online, but you have them at the bottom here per chapter in terms of the writers, and the additional reporting by listed in the back. And this is the cover again. India's Daughters, for two young women chasing opportunity has become a fight for their lives, an experience that is emblematic of a rapidly changing society. the quick thumbnail sketch for folks who haven't read it yet, and a reminder: we have a PDF of this special section. Thank you to Andrea and her colleagues at the Times for sharing that with our readers, with our viewers. And I put in gift links to the individual chapters if you want to see the online versions as well. The story itself, to women. I mean, this is something that is, you know, sure. I haven't read through the comments online, but I'm sure that it'll raise a lot of questions for folks. There's a lot of the politics around India right now, and the BJP, Prime Minister Modi's government being very conservative and very pushing back hard against any criticism, which I don't support at all. I just want to make sure that's very clear. But this is a reality that we live in, and the Times has actually played in for a number of years in terms of its coverage of India being, a lightning rod. This story focuses on two different women, mostly, from very lower classes, from rural areas, who are struggling with violence, with abuse from in-laws, trying to getting married off, promised off, escaping these kind of situations, running away, trying to get a job to kind of get that escape. Um, it's certainly not what what the Indian government would want people reading about, but it's the reality for so many people, for so many women. And I know from talking to my mom earlier that this was a challenge for her generation, and she herself was able to get education. Her father was very pro education for women. She ended up getting an MSW from Tata Institute in India and from Columbia University. After she came here, she taught in a village, etc. So she certainly didn't have this experience for folks. Um, but I definitely want to applaud the Times for doing this work. It's not just great storytelling; it's an important story to tell, which is and thank you for doing the great work of bringing it to a print audience, so people can really dive into it. It's definitely a great read. Wayne has a quick comment. A designer will notice things like all the captions are the same width. That's what you guys do. That's what
That's right,
designers.
Wayne. I'm on a grid and I didn't break it.
Our friend Ron Thomas is checking in from Zurich. Ron, thank you very much. If you did check in late, you can when the show is over, you'll be able to watch from the very beginning on whatever link you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, our Digimentors website. As soon as we're done, it'll come back. It'll start from the very beginning, and you'll be able to watch the early part of the show. So I definitely encourage you to do that. Um, it's been a fascinating conversation with Andrea, looking at the uh, India's Daughters special section, which she designed. The writing and the story was put together by a news team, but we looked at the transition from online to print, which was really great. We have a few. Wayne is endorsing nuance as an important point. So thank you, Wayne. And Mary Curtis is checking in from Charlotte. Mary, thank you so much for your support and for joining. And as I mentioned, you can watch the show from the beginning. You can also get gift links and a PDF of this whole special section from on our website. And my mom weighing in, very good presentation and very nicely designed for this section. So you get the mom endorsement.
Thank you so
Andrea.
much. Yeah, it's always such a treat to work with beautiful photography. The Print Hub has, we're kind of our own team, so we try and take really special stuff and make it look special for our print readers. And I'm glad that somebody saw this early on and said, hey, like this could be pretty cool.
I think I didn't see it, but I think that they were missing some of the credits in the piece in the bottom. I don't know. You can't unfortunately fix the print version that's already out there. But Carl is wondering why the section designer didn't get a under additional credits reference.
Oh, we don't do that. The print designers, because we're technically editors, right? So the additional credits are reporting credits, photographer credits. But if we
Sure.
credited the section designer, then it becomes a snowball effect, right? Do we
Sure.
credit the section editor? Do we credit, the online producers whose work we draw from? It just like gets really messy really fast. So print designers generally don't get credits, and that's what I signed up for when I took this job.
Well, sure. Sure.
So yeah, that's very kind, but in general, it's just then we would have probably a whole page of names because so many people have touched this.
Allow us to fill that gap for you, Andrea. Andrea Zagata, senior staff editor for news design at the New York Times. You can find her on Instagram, Zagata M. Andrea did the graphic design work for the print version of India's Daughters. Andrea, great job. We give you all the credit that we can give, and certainly want to give our shout out to the design team and the Print Hub. Such great support over the last several years. Ever since the first time I reached out to Tom Jolly on a Tuesday, I tweeted at him, and we moved the conversation to DMs. I asked him, I told him about our show, asked him if he'd be a guest. He said yes right away, and then I said, "Well, I'm going to be in New York this weekend. Are you free Sunday?" Sunday morning, we were at his kitchen table reviewing the print edition of the Sunday Times with the print editor.
So fun. That's
What an
so fun. Yeah,
incredible
we love the
experience.
show. We're huge fans of the show. We're print, so we take all the fans we can get, and I want to thank everyone who looks at the PDF. If you pick up a copy, that's great. But it's just nice. I think it's really nice to have something you can hold in your hands when you get a chance to. And that's to me what makes print special.
Absolutely. Again, you can go to our website. You'll see Digimentors.group/NYTReadalong, and you'll see Andrea's show. If you click on that and scroll down, you'll see the gift link and a PDF of this special section. Before we go to the rest of the paper, I do want to share some of Andrea's greatest hits. Wayne was kind enough to share this collection with us. This is, I believe, is this the 2022 portfolio?
I think so. This does look like 2022. My mom has texted me that she would like me to point out that she went to Northern Michigan before Central. So we have all the Michigan schools represented.
Make a note. She went to Northern Michigan before Central. We want to make sure that's duly
I got
noted.
you, Mom. I got you.
So let's take a look at this real quickly, because this is some of the other great work that Andrea has done. This is a piece on immigration.
Yeah, this is a really nice series of portraits taken of migrants at the border. The photographer actually gave them a self-triggering camera, so they took the pictures themselves. He wanted to give them some element of control. Just a really creative way to approach this kind of storytelling.
Wow. This one was one of my favorites. This is the commemoration of the massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street.
This is another big translation of a giant print graphic that walked you through this whole street. I actually was able to visit Tulsa shortly after this came out and walk down through where this community was, and that was really cool.
And to be able to do the illustration, this is a neighborhood that was absolutely obliterated in riot. I don't think really captures it in terms of the intensity and the amount of violence that took place, but it just destroyed a very wealthy black neighborhood in Tulsa. But having this illustration with the numbers and then the call outs at the bottom, just really, really great. This is a piece, how one firm dominated U.S. stockpile around vaccines, I guess, the anthrax
Yeah,
vaccine. Or
this if you recall when there was a pandemic and
oh yeah,
the US didn't have a good stockpile of like personal protection equipment, and this story
PPE, yeah,
actually walked you through why and the different lobbyists for keeping a good stockpile of the anthrax vaccine and kind of how that came about. So obviously a story like that doesn't have a lot of photography. So
sure.
we put it together into a collage.
And I'm just going to go quickly through the rest because we want to make sure we get to some of the paper this week with those special 2023 reviews. This piece is really nice with the dark reverse on the left hand side and the graphic, a website where the despairing learn how to die, with some photography and the snippet of a handwritten note. This one is a blaze so big it powered storms and fire whirls. A lot of photography to be able to tell the story. Very little text, very little copy.
Yeah, this is actually a digital graphic that was translated into print, like a 3D look at a storm.
With a QR code for augmented reality. I haven't seen that very often on some of the stories we've done. You can see that in the bottom right corner. Here's the a piece. I slandered myself, then I watched it spread. This repetitive view of screenshots, I think, is really interesting. Really great job with that. And then the one that I've been waiting to share with folks. We spent a lot of time looking at the Haiti special section when it came out. I can't remember. I think it was a year and a half ago now, maybe two.
Yeah. I feel
And
like it was last year sometime. It all
maybe it
runs
was last
together
year.
though.
But this is another Andrea Zagata special in terms of the layout and this incredible story, but being able to mix in both the photography, some of the illustrations, documents, laying out all these the documents from the archives. This chart that shows a timeline of France and Haiti and the debt that piled up. Just really great. And then having a full spread picture to show Port-au-Prince. Or no, it's the sun rising near Cap Helmet, I guess. I was guessing Port-au-Prince, but either way, just a great layout for that. Andrea, thank you so much for sharing your work with us, walking us through India's Daughters. Naomi had a quick comment about Black Wall Street. They were slaughtered. That's another way of describing what happened. It was a slaughter. Absolutely. Thank you, Naomi. So let's go ahead and turn our attention back to the newspaper, and we will walk through the rest of the sections. And we'll definitely try and spend some time with the book review as well, since that's Andrea's favorite. But we'll go back and bring back the various sections, and we'll bring this. We still have about 20 minutes in the show. Hope folks can stick around and read the paper with us. And again, read. I use read in quotes because it's we're looking at the pictures, the headlines. I describe it as a casual brunch with friends where we're passing sections back and forth. The story is on the front page with the Penn's president resigning. It was sometime during the day yesterday. I'm sure that was probably an evolving story, and obviously the board chair resigning didn't make it into the edition I had. I wonder if it's in the New York editions, in the late editions.
Let me look. I have the New York edition here. I'm doing a quick scan and I don't see it on the front,
Okay.
but
So maybe it was too late.
yeah, it might have been. I tell you what, I was like apologies to my colleagues. Very relieved to be done at 4 p.m. yesterday before all the news came
Absolutely.
in.
So, and if you can remind us, and my recollection, there at the very top, and I don't know if folks can see it. I'll hold it up closer to the camera. It's a fixed camera, so you might be able to see the dots after the volume number. There are two dots on my edition. That indicates which edition is out, right?
Yeah,
First
because I
dot,
have
second
3
dot,
dots over
three
here
dots.
in
And
New
I think
York.
it goes up to 4 or 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you might know them but you might know that better than me. You've probably thought
Um,
about this more.
but that's something that you can you can check your version of the paper. Carl, you can tell us how many dots you have in your Texas edition, which I think was the early one, because you know, and every week the news team, the design team has to send the paper to 27 presses around the country. So you're getting an edition of the paper that was put together at noon on Saturday, or maybe just after. Um, and so it's a whole. I mean, the whole production of getting the paper out, getting the paper to people's doors, is an incredible. And spending time with Mike Connors to see how it pushes up to the minute when you're printing the paper, bundling them, putting them on trucks, and driving them as far as Philadelphia. They have to be out the door at 2 a.m. to be able to get down to Philadelphia and to get newsstands um, early. So it's just some interesting um, backdrop. That story about UPenn, just make the point if you didn't follow, the University of Pennsylvania president Elizabeth McGill resigned over comments she made at a congressional testimony over anti-Semitism on campus, and a lot of the debate, I'm sure we'll see it inside, focused on free speech versus safety. And as much as we want to be defenders and protectors of free speech, um, there has to be a line drawn when safety is a concern. When Jewish students on campus feel unsafe in this particular instance, it's kind of like yelling fire in a crowded movie theater. There are limits to free speech, and this is where, and this is not just over this one incident and this one testimony. This is something that built over time, built over months. That she was losing support on campus even before the October 7th attacks. But this is an important story to read. The Inside the Times. There's a written podcast that follows women in India. A writer wanted to follow two women's quest for agency, but needed the right format. And this is a piece written by Amanda Taub, following up on the India's Daughters special section um, that we reviewed with Andrea. So definitely want to take a closer look at that. We have the Dateline, which is a nice feature. We actually had Megan DeTrolio on the show last year around this time when the pages A2 and A3 were redesigned. And she
Yeah,
talked about the new features that had come in. That was a fascinating
yeah,
episode.
this is such a fun front of book.
Yeah. Where Times journalists are reporting from around the world: Jackson, Mississippi, Senegal, Dublin, and Darwin, Australia. The other favorite piece I saw is this piece by David Dunlap in Times Past. This is exploring an artifact from the archive of the New York Times, but this is actually, a much more recent artifact, if you will. Mike Connors, so David Dunlap runs the Museum of the Times, which is on the top floor. When we were there in June and we interviewed Jake Silverstein in person on the New York Times Magazine, which was incredible to do that interview on a Wednesday when the magazine had first, come into his hands before it was in readers' hands that Sunday. After that interview, we were given a tour of the museum upstairs. I was in heaven. I really was. I was in
Yeah,
heaven,
that
Andrew. I got
museum
to
is
say,
cool.
I was in heaven at the front door, seeing the building, seeing the building, the name on the building.
I love the
Um,
museum because everyone wants to come see the building, and previously there were not a ton of places to take them, so it's a great place to be able to kind of show people around.
Absolutely. Going into the comments for just a moment, Kathleen says, "So nice to see the paper reading again. This is such a valuable experience." Thank you, Kathleen. Great to have you back. Carl rather says that Texas has a 4 dot. So you have a later edition than I have, which is interesting. And Ted is saying it's in my copy of the national edition with 2 dots. That's what I have. Fourth graph. So that's the challenge of reading the paper quickly. He's saying that's less than 2 hours later. You're right. So at the bottom of
Yeah, I also have
the
it in the
graph,
fourth graph. Yep.
less than 2 hours later, Mr. Bach announced, Scott Bach, that he too had resigned, deepening the turmoil at one of the nation's most prestigious universities. I guess the reason I was assuming it wasn't in there is that online they changed the headline. Instead of just the president resigning, they had leadership resigned, which was interesting. And this is Ted's comment about it being in the fourth graph. Ted, thank you for that close read. Appreciate that. So I was mentioning the David Dunlap writing this piece about the print the printing press. This is an image about all of the newspapers that the printing press prints not just the New York Times, but the Post, the Wall Street Journal, Newsday, USA Today, AM Metro, the New York Amsterdam News, the Chief, Gay City News, Der Yid, El Especialiato, and Barron's, among others. And there are many other newspapers that the New York Times prints on behalf of others. So in September, Mike Connors sent David one of every paper for the archives. So that was a neat piece to read. All right, let's go through the rest of this. The international story: long wait lists threaten UK promise of free care. That's about the National Health Service. Can discovery of Russian remains in France rekindle an old alliance? France held a ceremony in October at the graves of Russian soldiers from World War I. Far left remains discovered by Pierre Malinowski near Corsi. I hope this is where you'd have to read the story. I hope they're not talking about an old alliance between France and Russia, because that's not what we want.
Yeah, I haven't read that story.
This is a piece about Hong Kong and the neon lights.
So this is the piece that's on the front page.
On the front page.
Photo on the front page is referring to this story.
Yep. Exactly. That's the display story, but no text. They just have the story here inside. We have wide swath of Iraqi farmland becomes a haven for fighters tied to Iran. Buying quiet inside the Israeli plan that propped up Hamas. That's going to be that's the lead story. Israel long let cash from Qatar prop up Hamas. And this is the first time I've seen this. Is certainly it must be local. This is local from Maryland. King Crab, order your meals for the holidays. This is a different kind of ad than we usually see, which are a little more highbrow. We always like looking at the ads as well. Keep going here. The national section for LA Coroner's Office, dark job in the glare of publicity.
So this is my section, so I did most of this section as well.
Okay, so we have this LA Coroner's Office story, got a full page, 4 photos.
Yeah, that's what we would call the dress page, the first page of the section.
The dress page.
The dress page.
Okay.
We're the only paper that calls it a dress page, I think. So
this is below the fold, so you kind of see how that extends. It's the first time I've heard that term, so thank you, Andrea. 4 nice photos and lots of text. So that's great. So when did you get this story? This is not a breaking news story.
Yeah.
When did you know this would be in?
Well, I had a different story there until about 3:30 p.m. on Friday, and then the story I had there was held because it needed a little bit more reporting.
Oh, wow.
So then we went back to our list and said, for print, everything in the Sunday paper has to publish online by 3 a.m. Sunday. So we went back to the desk, we being me and the content editor for Sunday, Dave Bessie, and said, what else do you have that's going to publish in time that we can use? And they said, well, LA Coroner. So then I looked at that with a photo editor and said, hey, do you think this can hold a dress page? And then and then we replaced the other story that was going to go there that we thought would be ready.
Shout out to Dave Vesey, who's on the Print Hub. His father, George Vesey, is a former guest on the show, and he was part of an all-star lineup we had several back in the summer when the sports desk was disbanded, when it was announced. Lori Mifflin, Claire Smith, George Vesey, and Bill Roden. Sri likes to call them a murderer's row after the 27 Yankees. It was an incredible honor. And George has just been such a great supporter of the show. He watches it often, comments. We've emailed back and forth. So shout out to George and David and the whole Vesey family, who are all or have been at various times working in journalism. We'll continue with the A book, the national section that Andrea works on. So this is the Norman Lear. Did you do this piece as well?
Yeah, so originally, like in early editions, this would have been a jump. So then my colleague John Grip, who is the late designer, would have brought the text in, maybe adjusted the photos, asked the editors to trim it a little in order to make it an inside piece after that sports story went out there.
And by late designer, you mean late evening designer?
Yes, I mean he logs in around 4, which is when I log off. So he would handle like the 8 p.m. edition and the, I believe it's 11:30, but don't quote me on that.
Just want to clarify that as we turn toward the back of the A section, we'll see the obits pretty soon. So I didn't want anyone to wonder if he was a late editor on the paper. This is the story about guns, another big story, lots of great photographs.
Yeah, that story was done in advance a couple of days before by my colleague Kay Young. And then I just kind of shepherded it through when it went on A1.
Sure.
So we also do that sometimes. Sometimes stuff is done way ahead of time and it's just waiting for its day.
And then this is a big spread. This is about Trump's stance on NATO. But you have about 2/3 or 3/4 of the 2-page spread, and it goes all the way to the bottom as well to show the bottom half of the layout. So that's definitely interesting. And then what I always like pointing out is the New York Times printing press can print 40-page sections, I think. But at least in DC and the Post, they can only go up to 26 pages. So 27 becomes its own little mini section, little insert, if you will, which highlights this story on page 27. I don't know if it's consistent across the other printing presses, but this is what you might be seeing as a mini section. Again, we'll use Carl as our test. Carl, if you have a little insert after your A book, the continuation of the A book, when does it break off? How many pages do you get? And what's that story that you're, because this is easy to read, right? It kind of jumps out at you and gets more attention. Continuing in the A-book, this is where the obits are. This is the Penn President story. Then Ryan O'Neal passed away, and a significant obit there. And then Ellen Holly, an actress who broke racial barriers on TV, the first Black performer to play a lead role on a daytime soap. And then we have in outside New York, sports is not its own section; it's in the A book. So we see this here, and Wayne is sharing, and Carl is saying for him, page 26 is the end of the first section as well. I wonder how that is around the country. How many other presses go to 26? Andrew's revealing a lot of secrets on how the sausage is made and then remade. I hope those secrets are okay, Wayne. Hopefully she won't get in trouble with the big man. And Carl is saying weather is the first page of the new small section. So that's interesting.
Yeah, we usually, we just treat it when we're designing as one big section. So
Sure.
We don't always take that into account.
Sure.
Since it's different on different presses.
This is the story about Shohei Ohtani signing a $700 million deal. again, the Metro section for national editions, we only get 2 pages of Metro instead of the full section that you get in New York. And that's the end of the A book. We do want to take a moment. It's 9:55. We really pushed it in terms of time, but we do want to take a look at the book review at least. But before we do that, I want to make a few quick announcements for folks in case folks have to leave right at 10. If you see the crawl across the bottom, want to make sure you know that next week our guests will be Walter Grayson and Tim Fielder. They collaborated on a graphic novel, The History of Hip Hop. So join us next week at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time for another great show. That'll be our last show of the year. After that, we'll take 2 weeks off for the holidays and we'll be back on January 7th. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I have another show that I'll be producing on Monday evening at 7 p.m. And Steve will share a link to that show in the comments. As I mentioned earlier, we've talked about this on the air. Candace Sanchez was actually a guest on this show earlier. It's obviously a very sensitive topic. It's focused on male survivors. Season 3 of Unspoken Conversations with Candace focused on male survivors of sexual abuse. I actually shared my story for the first time ever on an edition of Sri's Sunday New York Times read along. Andrew, I don't know if I don't think I had a chance to give you this background, but back when during the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, I did a special show from Hastings on Hudson, from where I grew up, where we talked about the hearings, and I shared my own story for the first time this year. I've worked with Candace has a podcast, and for 2 years, and we turned season 3 into a live stream. I was the first guest and served as the co-host. Monday is the season finale. So if you have a chance, please join us 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday. We'll review what we've learned over the year, some of the highlights of our shows, and talk about next steps in our work as advocates for survivors. This show is that show in particular, and the read along is produced with support from Digimentors. Digimentors provided pro bono support for the Unspoken podcast and live stream. They were obviously the firm that Sri and Andrew started, and I'm the vice president of events and communications. So thank you. I want to give a shout out to Digimentors for your support in that project that I did over the last year. And our sponsor for the New York Times read along is Muckrack. Thank you for your support of all of our work. We do want to take a look at some of the sections. So if you're able to stay with us a little bit past 10, Andrea, we'd
Sure. I also quickly, I feel like you didn't give me an opening, but I wanted to say really thank you for sharing your story of being a survivor. I think that's really important. I hope that people who can will tune in. And I think that is a very brave thing for you to have done. So
thank you.
I wanted to make sure that you got a little credit for that as well, because I think that's really awesome that you stepped up to tell that story.
Andrea, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I shared, as I mentioned, I shared my story with the read along. Kind of regular viewers have heard it first. We've had several guests over the course of the years. Don Helmrich, who is from Milwaukee, leads an event called Denim Day. She herself is a survivor. It's a movement once a year, wearing jeans to work, back when people went to work, to show support for survivors. And I took a lot of inspiration from her. It wasn't until last January when I came out a little bit more publicly about my story, wrote a blog post, put it all over social, and then did this show over the course of the year. And I will, tell you, I found it was obviously scary at first. It got more comfortable over time, and I was able to talk about it. And I try to remember to make sure to give people a moment before I thrust it upon them, uh, because it is triggering for other folks. And
For
so
sure.
hopefully,
Yeah. I
um,
think it's a really important discussion. And yeah, I just want to thank you for being someone who's making sure that we talk about it.
thank you.
So
Thank
that's
you.
really great. But
Um,
yeah, Alsan, what else you got?
Appreciate it. Yeah, we got a lot.
Paper.
In case folks are having to leave, just want to see who else is here. So Naomi is sharing trauma as the first in many steps toward healing. And Naomi, thank you very much. Carl says important work. Many thanks to Neil and Andrea signing off. So thank you, Carl, for joining us. Arlene is just joining us or just commenting from greetings from Inwood in Upper Manhattan. Um, and my mom is sharing the detail, and this is the challenge, but you also kind of prepare for it. I was 7 when I was abused by a neighbor, and I go into detail about it. If you There's a link that Steve shared to the show on Monday, and you'll see a link to my blog post that tells the full story. But what we'd like to do with everyone's permission is to stay with the paper for just a little bit longer. I'm going to say 15 minutes. Let's try and do that if we can. We all have other stuff we want to have to get to today. We try and keep to our 90-minute show. But we have the best of special section. So we want to share that. We have the best books of 2023, and this is Andrea's special section. So just take a look at the book review. We had Tina Jordan on when we celebrated the 125th anniversary of the book review about a year and a half ago, which was another life highlight for us with the read along. We also had Daniel Jones on Valentine's Day, the editor of Modern Love. So that was also good. I love reading the book review. I'm more of a nonfiction guy, so I like reading the history that I get from looking through. Do you have
Yeah,
specific books that you like?
I love the book review. And so this is the best books of 2023. I actually stopped by my friend's desk when I was closing India's Daughters, and they were closing best books at the same time, which makes sense, right? We were closing at the same time. They appear in the same paper. And I just look forward to this section every year because I like book recommendations. And then I will sit on the New York Public Library website and put anything that interests me here on hold. And it becomes, part of my reading list. I'm pretty big on, I like fiction. I think that's one, I've always loved fiction, but two, I read a lot of nonfiction, obviously, for my job. So fiction just hits a little bit of a different note for me, which is really nice.
Sure. So the 10 best books of 2023, The Beasting by Paul Murray, Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Ajay Brenya, apologize for the pronunciation, Eastbound by Melis de Karangal, The Fraud by Zadie Smith, North Woods by Daniel Mason, The Best Minds by Jonathan Rosen, Bottoms Up and the Devil Laughs by Carrie Howley, Fire Weather by John Valiant, Master Slave Husband and Wife by Ilion Wu, and Some People Need Killing by Patricia Evangelista. From a design perspective, the blue text, which is hard to read on the screen, is excerpts from each of these books, which is interesting. Any of these books that you read that made the top 10?
I have not read any of those actually. So I'll have something to start my reading list for
Right.
2024.
They have the year's best thrillers, the year's best audiobooks, inside inside the list. That's going to be interesting. Writing about bestsellers isn't quite as exciting as being a best-selling author, but it has its perks. You know who's going to be on the list before most people do. The year's best poetry. Our friend Rose Horowitz will be very interested in that in particular. And we have a question from Tim Fielder, who's been doing some live drawing. What is Andrea's Twitter handle? Uploading the portrait.
Oh, I don't have Twitter, Tim. I'm so sorry.
Tim, you can find Andrea on Instagram IG Zagata M. Hopefully you can share it on Instagram as well. But if you do tag me, I'll make sure to share it with folks so people can actually see the piece. But thank you, Tim, for doing that.
I love in this book section, I love these icons for each section and how
Yes,
they're kind of in a systematic illustration. I think that's so smart and just really good art direction.
the year's best historical fiction is another. The year's most notable book covers. That's an interesting category to look at.
Yeah, I love that category. I'm going to spend some time with that.
Absolutely. The year's best romance, the year's best science fiction and fantasy, the year's picks from Time's staff critics.
Oh, that's fun.
So that's interesting. And then this little sidebar Beastly, 3 animal narrators, Odd Jobs, 4 fictional gigs, water thrillers everywhere. Do you reckon? Reckoning seemed to be publisher's favorite term to signal that a book mattered. So several books with the word reckoning in the title. The year's best horror, the year in book review, the year in the book review podcast. This is incredible. The year's best crime novels, um, the year's best children's books, and then of course the combined print and book ebook bestseller lists, and the print hardcover bestsellers and the paperback. That's a great section, and then a Mindy Kaling ad on the back. Fresh, vibrant, must-read books you won't want to put down. Mindy's Book Studio. But that's a great year in review from Book Review. Really love that detail. Um, the arts and leisure section, their best of 2023, as we're watching the clock, 10:07 a.m. Eastern Time. What did they go with? They went with this piece, the best of 2023 theater, finding lightness in the darkness. So that's highlighting Love, A Doll's House, How to Defend Yourself, Primary Trust, several productions. Speaking of, it's well, I'm sure we'll get to concerts in a moment. We'll see if there's a music. Best of 2023 culture podcasts, moments of joy and celebration.
And again, like what I love about this, right? As you're flipping, you'll see, like, I can already see from the first one to the second one, they're using kind of a visual system in these illustrations, right?
So this little pink,
Yeah, like they have the pink with these kind of
collage,
collage, and then the next one, I see a similar.
little green in between.
Mhm.
And you can't quite tell, but there's a bar across atop Maya Phillips, which is the same color green. The author, green, little green across Amanda Hess, but down at the bottom, they have, I'll fold this up so you can see it. Listen, hear more than talk, a little purple bar at the top, which I think is that no, that's not the purple there. So it's color coded, but I don't see where the purple connects to. So that'll be interesting to see. This is best of 2023 dance. This is the color, use of color. Best of 2023 classical. Design people pick this kind of stuff out. You see this in an instant.
Yeah, it's just like, a way to visually tie it all together. And, as you can imagine, a lot of these photos are file photos, right? They're not
Sure.
taken fresh. So it's also a way to make them more interesting to the eye and a little bit more playful. And I think it's very smart.
So I think what's happening at the bottom, there's this listen and hear more than talk has a purple bar over the author, but I don't see a purple kind of section, if you will. But as I was flipping through, I saw another purple. The new normal could be special down here. So that must be some kind of
maybe they're using it for some sort of like sidebar or something.
Sidebar type thing.
Yeah.
So best classical dance, best of 2023 comedy jazz, best of 2023 film. More on culture. Best of 2023 film. Best of 2023 video games podcasts. Best of 2023 television. And best of 2023 art. But it's interesting for art, they chose more of a block style than that.
Yeah, I
early.
think, obviously they probably, I'm guessing here, but as a designer, you probably don't want to crop somebody else's
Exactly.
artwork.
Exactly. Some more art and best of 2023 pop. So that's what I wanted to actually take a moment, because last night my daughter Emily wanted to get a Christmas present for Pam, my wife. So we did an early Christmas present. We went down and saw Pentatonics in concert. We drove 2 hours to Charlottesville. Pam had no idea where we were going or what we were going to do, so it was a great surprise. Granted, we
That's
got
so
home at
fun.
1:30 last night for a morning show, but sometimes
It was worth it. I
it was
assume it
worth
was
it.
worth it. That's super
It
fun.
was. They were great. They were great in concert. We enjoyed it. But this is the best of 2023 pop. Uh, Continuing the best of 2023 theme with 4 minutes until our extended deadline. Let's check out this stylish awards, or styles ish. That award, and it's hard to get the full award in camera. I'll see if I can get some of that. You can see that
Yeah,
trophy,
the style section always does such fun stuff.
right? So let's see what they did with this. Just an article celebrating the Eternal Cool Girl challenge for the semi-quincentennial. Unite the country with a logo. This was a design studio's almost impossible mission for America's 250th, the semi-quincentennial.
Say that 5 times fast.
Right, and that's coming up in 2026. Got to start planning. So let's see. I'm flipping through looking for the awards. So I'm assuming they're going to have a big graphic for it. This is a fun article. Go ahead, type with the Ghost of Hemingway. They were auctioning off manual typewriters from
That's pretty
various
cool.
people. Let's see.
Super good headline too.
Right.
Love that headline.
So let's see here. Let's keep looking for. This is the continuation of the Norman Lear article. For these characters, age was not an, or a different article about Norman Lear. For these characters, age was not an issue. And you see some of the classics from the Jeffersons, Maude, All in the Family. Here we go. The most stylish people and more of 2023. So this is the people on this list, who are presented in no particular order, reflect the ways that the Styles Desk defines its coverage: high and low, fun and serious, curious and open-minded, reveling in characters, appreciating the material world, inviting everyone to the party. You have Beyonce, Phoebe Philo, Representative Patrick McHenry of North Carolina.
Wow, a wide range.
And Michelle Yeoh in that beautiful green dress. But they're also having some fun with it. So let's take a look at the bottom half. The Sphere in Las Vegas. I know my sister has been there a few times now. They designed they changed the outside based on the event that they're doing. You see this like yellow face.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's pretty incredible. This is Jacob Elordi, State Representative Justin Jones, Lily Gladstone. So you have a whole range of folks making this list.
Yeah, I think that's a really kind of like fun approach to an end of the year piece. I like that a lot.
Yeah. They have not only, if you can see in the bottom, this is King Charles III. I'm just going to call out the ones that you wouldn't necessarily think would make a list like this. Jeff Bezos is a schooner, his ship. You have Travis Kelce, also known as Karma. As a Swiftie dad, I'm very familiar with that. But you also have before Taylor Swift's boyfriend, if folks don't know the reference. She has a song, Karma is My Boyfriend. Just making sure, trying to keep everyone.
You got to keep everyone hip, Neil.
Trying to keep everyone in sync. The AI Pope, few of the artificially generated images that have flooded social media feeds, whereas fly as a rendering of Pope Francis in that puffer. So if you can see that jacket, AI is a whole different story. And they have in the bottom right corner, if you can see it, the ludicrously capacious bag in Secession made the list. So I don't know if you can see that.
Amazing.
Maybe that's a little bit better of a view. Someone had a lot of fun, or a whole team had a lot of fun putting this together. But wait, there's more. So this goes on for several pages. So definitely, I'm curious what the online version will look like. Barbie made the list. Taylor Swift in a Kansas City Chiefs sweater made a list, or maybe a sweatshirt. The entries on this list were chosen from an initial pool of some 250 submitted by Style staff members. The larger pool was winnowed in meetings and video calls that were not without passionate debate. To those who did not make the cut, 2024 is just a few weeks away, and we'll be watching. So we'll be looking forward to more of this in the future. And then they go on with the regular section, the vows section, and more. We get Kate Doty on last year, I think it was, who used to work on the vows section, walked us through wedding vows, which was incredible.
Very cool.
So I will apologize. I blew through our deadline, self-imposed extended deadline of 10/17. Or 10/15 was the deadline, went all the way to 10/17. But Andrea, thank you so much for joining us this
week. Of course. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for everyone who stuck on. Thanks for everyone who's going to maybe watch from the beginning later when they have a chance to wake up and have some coffee. It's such an honor to be here. I love, having the opportunity to talk about my work, and it was really great. So I really, really appreciate it.
That's great. For folks who are interested in joining our mailing list, send me an email if you're still watching, neil@digimentors.group, and we'll send you updates for upcoming shows. We send about 1, maybe 2 emails a week maximum, so it's not too much on your inbox. And certainly, as I mentioned earlier, if you joined us late, as soon as we finish, we'll be off the air. It'll take a moment, and then you can watch the show from the very beginning on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on our Digimentors website. You'll see an incredible review of India's Daughters, which is the print section that Andrea worked on, that we focused on today. Let me see if I can grab that one more time. Obviously, I'm doing this. Where is my India's Daughters special section? I can't find it. How sad.
I have it.
You have it? Can you hold it up?
There you go.
There we go. There's India's Daughters right there. That's the special section, the PDF and gift links for that special section on our website. So definitely check it out. And we're not going to be taking those down. Unlike the New York Times for Kids, which we take down at noon on Sundays, the PDF will remain on our website for folks to enjoy, because you definitely should see the great work that Andrea did for that. Great writing, great storytelling as well, from a great team of writers. With that, we will bid you adieu. And thank you again for joining us this Sunday. We'll see you again next Sunday. And hope you have a good day. And if you're on the East Coast, hopefully you stay dry.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.